Okay, I think we might have just the group that we hoped for and that registered. Thank you very much, everyone who have joined us today for the discussion on the upcoming EU presidency of Poland in the European Union Council. And the presidency will begin soon, in just a couple of weeks. And we have been working tirelessly to identify what you can expect out of this presidency. My name is Wojciech Przybylski. I'm editor-in-chief of Visegrad Insight, and I'm joined by Magdalena Góra, professor at the Jagiellonian University, which also is displayed in a beautiful background behind her. Magdalena is focusing on political discourse and political processes in the European Union, and has also organized, in partnership with us, Trans-European Policy Studies pre-presidency conference recently in Warsaw, focusing exactly on the theme of the priorities. Next, with another beautiful background, Europe Future Forum, sits Jan Farfał, EU Enlargement Fellow at Visegrad Insight and Deputy Editor-in-Chief at Respublika Nova, a journal that Respublika Foundation publishes. And Jan has authored a piece published on Visegrad Insight, also in Polish, about the priorities, about the focus of the upcoming Polish presidency. We will organize the meeting the following way. First half an hour we'll spend on discussing, and apologies for background noise, the first half an hour we'll discuss our ideas. Meanwhile, we'll be collecting questions in the chat, and we will turn off the recording. The first part is on the record. We'll turn off the recording to continue with Chatham House-based discussion with you, asking questions live, or if you prefer, again, adding them to the chat. So let me begin with Magdalena. What do you expect will be the key deliverable of the upcoming Polish European Council presidency? What it can be, if we make a projection, what it aims at least to be remembered for the moment as we see it.
I will start with a comment on the timing. It's a very specific moment for Polish presidency, and it is a little bit different than for the couple of presidencies that we had beforehand, and specifically for the Hungarian presidency. That is also going to be a point in reference for Polish presidency. Why the timing is important? It is important because Polish presidency will overlap with actual start of the operation of the EU institutions. As we know, the European Parliament already started working, but it is still in a very early phase of the new term in office. The European Commission is starting just now. So I think what is expected from Polish presidency is to sort of reorganize the political process within the Council of the EU to the extent that it's actually going in sync with the EU institutions. It's not a secret that Donald Tusk, the Polish Prime Minister, was a significant political actor, is bringing Ursula von der Leyen into the position of the head of the European Commission. Not himself, but he was a key ally. So I expect there to be important discussions when it comes to both political agenda and the prioritizing what needs to go. One of the important points is still also from the point of view of time, to notice that the presidency in the Council of EU is primarily aimed at facilitating the political process, bringing sort of decisions in place for 27 member states within the sort of intergovernmental or transgovernmental, if you wish, nature of the process in the Council. In that sense, I think what is debated is that many things are actually in the very beginning of a legislative process. So what Donald Tusk and the Polish government is going to facilitate is starting the impetus for the political decisions rather than delivering in a sense of, bringing something to the fruition. Just a good example is the negotiations of the multi-annual financial framework for the European Union. We know that they are going on. We know that they are will take shape in the forthcoming 6 months, but we won't see any of that on paper in that period, right? This will probably, as we already heard, be delivered in the next Danish presidency. But nevertheless, the Polish presidency, I hope, will be crucial in at least setting some of the basics and priorities within this process, given that we also, as a country, have a significant portfolio in the European Commission. But I think when it comes to the expectations, because you ask about what Poland will be or Polish presidency will be remembered of, I think legislatively speaking, there might not be that many things that will be delivered, but it's actually quite normal. And if you ask me, I'll be very happy if Polish presidency will be remembered as a honest broker, which is, of course, repeated very often by all of the political representatives in Warsaw at the moment, but also the one that gives the impetus for, pro-European sort of energy in the EU institutions.
But Magda, if I may, there are two presidencies, usually two programs of presidencies. And one is the one that you described, where Poland will have only that many stakes as generally the EU Council and the institutional process of the EU allows. And at the same time, there are political ambitions and there is political communication. So what opportunities would you say there are, either low-hanging fruit or very ambitious ones, from the point of view of the Polish leadership, Donald Tusk and Radek Sikorski, whose role as prime minister and foreign minister are next to nothing in the bureaucratic process of the presidency?
Well, that's not easy to answer. I think there's still two dimensions of the presidency. The one is domestic, and I think domestically speaking, we have a very specific political game that will take place in Poland in the forthcoming 6 months around Polish presidential elections. This is not a problem or a complication. We already had a presidency earlier when we had a campaign to the parliament, but it will actually put, I think, significant political attention domestically rather to the domestic political game than the EU. So I would say that from the point of political communication, domestically presidency will be, I think, rather kept as a kind of experienced Europeans playing the game, and that's pretty much it. While in the EU, I think the way Polish government is framing priorities, basically saying security after security and on security, is showing that they are prepared for at least significant degree of emergency management. And as every observer of international scene saw in a couple of recent days, we can be, completely taken by surprise by international events, and there is no way to prepare for what's coming, right? There is this saying that attests or that is often repeated while discussing the priorities of presidency and what the presidency plans to do, is that you should be careful what you wish for, because there's not only the proverb there, but also the fact that you actually usually get what you are wishing the least on agenda, right? So there is a kind of presidency Murphy law that tells that when the things are going wrong, they will go the way that actually is painful for the given presidency, right? So in that sense, we don't necessarily know how Polish presidency gonna deal with many of those things. I think the way they are trying to put the security on agenda both domestically and externally, as Polish government and Prime Minister recently repeated. It tells us also a little bit about the fact that they are, we have a new High Representative for EU foreign policy and security affairs, and I think Polish authorities, you've mentioned Radosław Sikorski, will also take care to cooperate closely with Kaja Kallas, with Antonio Costa, also with Ursula von der Leyen, to basically trying to stabilize EU's external stance or global stance. And we have, of course, multiple angles where this common and cooperative approach is really needed, both transatlantic, the Middle East nowadays, and of course, in supporting Ukraine.
Thank you, Magda. And turning to Jan, I read your commentary, and of course we published it with great interest, where you seem to put a lot of emphasis on the communication side, on the political communication of the government around the presidency, which is focusing indeed on security. There are 7 priorities at the moment the government is planning to announce as the key pillars of the presidency, and all of them start with security. As Magda mentioned, it's hard security, meaning border security included. There is economic security, energy security, food security, health security, information security, civilian security. I think I'm at 7 right now. But Jan, tell us how security and why security shapes the upcoming Polish presidency, and what is achievable and what may go wrong.
Well, thank you, Wojciech. And well, when it comes to those 7 or even 8 potential dimensions of security, I think that their outlook is very closely interrelated with what could possibly associated with successful enlargement, because it is about not only about the hard security of our frontiers, but it's also about our aspirations to curb foreign interference. Obviously, it has something to do with the energy security and the food security, and I will be happy to go into further details about it. But when it comes to relevance of this entire security perspective, this is something that already Magda outlined. So 2 crucial aspects is obviously timing. And if anything, to add to what Magda said about timing, I think that the position of Warsaw is becoming even more relevant given the contingent political developments both in Berlin and in Paris. So amidst the entire political turmoil happening in those 2 capitals, Poland could have a glimpse of stability at the moment. So that's another thing about the timing. And obviously, when it comes to security, where else, if not security, we have a strong legitimacy to make our arguments. 4.7% contribution as of GDP towards security projected in 2025 makes us a strong player. And also there is this narrative legitimacy that we have, and the entire region, which is, we've warned you about the Russian imperial, to put it, aspirations. What may go wrong and what may go well? Well, I think that here is an aspect with which I could slightly disagree with Magdalena and offer a different perspective, especially when it comes to domestic politics. And here again, we have security plus enlargement being intertwined, because Polish presidential elections will coincide not only with our presidency in the Council, but also with the renewed discussion on autonomous trade measures, the so-called ATMs, which pertain to the discussion on the European support for Ukrainian agricultural goods. And from the past, we know that this is a very contagious topic that has heavily influenced not only the Polish internal politics, but also the scenes from Brussels, where we remember as you know, farmers were coming to the capital of the European Union and then catching their attention with their activities. And we already see with the dynamics associated with Mercosur that Polish government is trying to play a more conservative card, being attuned to those sensitivities. And another crucial aspect affecting the successful outcome of Polish presidency is connected to the unintended consequences in the larger international scene that Magdalena mentioned about. So we are already entering a period of discussions trying to foresee possible scenarios associated with the armistice in Ukraine. So this is the so-called peace offensive of Donald Trump. How it's going to look like? Well, we don't have that much intel on this, but there are growing discussions about the tangible security guarantees and with soldiers, with having boots on the ground. And this will become a significant discussion also in Polish internal considerations, whether Polish soldiers will be going to guarantee that armistice or not. And this will be another aspect susceptible to a lot of manipulation, foreign interference, and obviously a very healthy debates on social media.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Jan, for offering all these, also the global factors or drivers that will be pronounced on Polish presidency and the program of the European Union. One thing is that the European Union has not been designed for waging wars, and currently there are also there is not just the need to wage wage war is maybe too much to say of the current European Union, but to support a warring party in a defensive war against Russian invasion, where EU is taking sides. But at the same time, it's about winning or losing elections. And Poland will have presidential race during the elections. And if I'm thinking about the risks of how the presidential race may impact the presidency, I think from the Eurocrats, Brussels perspective, these are tremendous, in fact, because the political factors of the political campaign, because of the communication domestically, may simply, and I would expect they will, take priority over political priorities in the European Union. Do you think these risks are significant? Or maybe, like in many other countries in the EU, which held the EU Council presidency and held elections at the same time, these risks can be easily mitigated?
Is that question to both of us? Yeah,
Magda, you were the first.
I can start with this. I think the Polish several elections that we witnessed definitely show a significant role of the European integration in the sort of designing internal political sort of dividing lines. European integration is politicized in domestic context, but not in every election. And I think what is clearly seen is that it's much more clearly used by political actors in the parliamentary elections than in presidential elections, primarily because in presidential elections, you are trying to get, more than half of your population of voters to support you. So I think since this is a divisive issue, it's not as politicized as in the parliamentary election. So that's a hope that I can see. Of course, some of the candidates will certainly utilize a radical Eurosceptic or sovereignist discourse. Whether that would be the candidates from the major players, we'll only see, but I would rather say that this may not be as clearly visible in parliamentary elections. So that's I think will be at least some of my hopes there. But then again, how this impacts presidency is not that direct to me. Like even in domestically, there is a heightened attention to European integration and discussions. Still, presidency is rather bureaucratic procedure. And what I think the current government counts on significantly is the settled position of prime minister in European circles. So I would say that the strength of the government will actually be more impactful than the presidential campaign. So, in a sense that it actually is Donald Tusk and his circle that is relevant point of reference for the European bureaucrats that you've said, not necessarily how the domestic game for presidential elections unfolds. But I hope Jan will disagree with me, for the sake of discussion, of course.
Go ahead, Jan.
There is one important aspect when we're trying to correlate the incoming Polish presidential elections with presidency in the council. Any single vulnerability of the government or the way that the Polish presidency will be handled will be exploited in the campaign, which is already putting the government in a slightly disadvantaged position. So that's the starting point. And one of the aspects where Polish presidency could have made some further progress, especially when we talk about enlargement, is the discussion about the qualified majority voting, something that has been for years repeatedly identified as one of the major stumbling blocks when it comes to accelerating progress on enlargement. And whereas this sounds as a very promising initiative through the perspective of EU/Brussels policy making, there won't be any appetite for this, especially because of the incoming presidential elections, because this is such a contagious topic that it can be very easily spinned about, Poland losing its independence and, the West European countries dictating what should be done because we are giving away our sovereignty. So that would be one aspect of the problems which are looming on the horizon. I mean, EU, yes, it was set up as a peace project, but at the end of the day, it was, it still is a political entity in the making, right? We had several stages of the European integration taking place, starting with the markets, then we had currency, and eventually there is always the question about, European army or the peace facilities which are actually designated for supporting the war efforts. So I don't think that the initial ramification of the union are such a problem. And something that I also find interesting with the Polish presidency, and is slightly missing from the discussion, is this idea to promote Polish soft power. I haven't seen it that much, and I think that it was an interesting aspect that the government could have played with, and that would be also beneficial for the local electorate, like making Poles feel proud about themselves and exporting the good narrative. And I am aware that the Polish government will probably try to promote our writers, most notably, the Nobel laureate in literature, Olga Tokarczuk. But the problem is that, with this kind of sophisticated literature, I mean, we can only imagine how many, average Poles do read Olga Tokarczuk. And I think we're still missing this narrative that could win hearts and minds of an average European citizen of, of something that would arouse positive things associated with Poland, like made in Poland, etc.
Like, come to Poland, you can make money here. And that's something Poland definitely is underplaying. There's the economic agility in the times of global turmoil is something that seems to be underrepresented, and sometimes or too often misplaced. That Poland actually wants more money. We actually, you know, for what it can seem, do not take people's money. We make people's money. The return on investment in Poland in all domains, European investment, other foreign investment, is quite high, and the robust economy goes against the current perils of most of the European Union market. It's not that Poland is insulated, but it seems to do the impossible in the current state of affairs, investing both in defense, one of the highest number of contributions in terms not only GDP percentage, but also the volume of purchases that are being made, not only in the US, but also in Europe, including Sweden, Great Britain, a number of other countries from where Poland is buying loads of equipment, and at the same time spending money on butter, so to say. So it's basically so far doing the trick of rephrasing the question, guns or butter. Poland does guns and butter, and I think that's something that many in Europe, in terms of political marketing, political communication, are still trying to figure out how it is feasible, how it is to be done. Now, there's a number of other topics. There is a Trump presidency, which we might explore a little bit further. There are some ideas about what Poland could contribute from the point of view of European interest to the relationship with Trump. There are a number of questions of whether and to what extent Trump presidency will deepen and accelerate a certain type of decision-making in Europe, and I think this is worth exploring a little bit further. There's a question of migration next to enlargement question, which are the big horizontal topics that will definitely shine some light on the Polish leadership in both aspects. We'll see how this will play out, and then there are many questions and uncertainties to be answered in the second part of the debate, for which I invite all of you, especially that you're subscribers to Visegrad Insight, and we cordially thank you for your contributions and support, because of which we are able to continue this discussion.